Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
Deep in the forests of North America, a creature is said to exist. A creature that people are encountering. With far too many reports to ignore, there are elements of truth behind these accounts that mankind can no longer ignore.
Breaking news out of Texas, Bigfoot is real.
Could a breeding population of large, upright, hairy hominids really exist in North America?
Or is there something more paranormal at work here, deep in the woods?
If just one footprint, one wood knock, or one howl is real, then man's understanding of primate evolution would be changed forever. Join the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective as they delve further into the mysteries of Bigfoot and other paranormal phenomena through the eyes of witnesses, investigators, critics, and skeptics. Join us as we look to discover what lurks from behind tall trees.
Caught me mid-step.
Good job, Mike.
I know, right? Yeah, representing my shitty hockey team today. Yeah,
There you go.
Giraffe Lottery was last night. They got they're picking second overall.
Nice.
It's one of the few perks of following a team that sucks. But anyway, I wanted to start off tonight, kind of veering away from the Bigfoot rabbit hole. I know Charlie, you're mostly based in Kentucky. I was curious if you guys what you knew about Land Between the Lakes, the Beast of LBL. Have you ever heard that story before?
No, never.
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm joking.
Oh,
Yeah, it's well known down here. I've been there. I've got good evidence from there. I've taken many Bigfoot reports from there.
Mm-hmm.
But the one where it killed the family, I'm not so sure that actually happened, to be honest.
interesting. Okay.
So,
Yeah, because that's kind of like the big story that goes around. And I know, like most renditions, a lot of people don't say it's a Bigfoot. A lot of people say it's like a Dogman. I mean, I personally don't really believe in the Dogman phenomena. But I was just kind of curious to get your perspective on that.
well, there's Dogman reports as well. So you got both. You got Dogman reports and Bigfoot reports, which are two different creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But for it to kill that family like that, there's a lot of red flags. There's no medical reports on it. There are no, nothing with the law enforcement. There's no obituary. There's a lot of issues with that story, even how it was reported initially. Now, if you believe in a government cover-up, then that would explain a lot of that if they're trying to hide it. So if that's the case, then maybe it happened.
Yeah, because there's some really graphic details about it. Like apparently they found one of the kids like up in a tree. I think someone supposedly got like ripped in half.
Right.
I think like the inside of the trailer or something like that. That was a whole mess. It's just like a really interesting rabbit hole. And like I know, like in addition to being a hotbed for Bigfoot sightings, I know Kentucky also has fair share of like Dogman sightings, everything like that. So I was just kind of curious if how often the two overlap based on your experiences.
I even had at a conference, Fish and Game came up to me unprovoked, and they told me about that. And they said, they gave me all these reasons why it was not true. Now, again, it could be a cover-up, but that means these two individuals came to my conference, Northern Kentucky, not even near there, just to tell me that. And I don't promote it. I'm not online promoting that attack. So they were just talking, nonchalant about that. And they told me all these reasons why it was not real. So who knows?
Yeah. Did you ever hear that story before, Lynette? Or
No, I didn't.
yeah, it's definitely, it's definitely an interesting one.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah,
that story. There was two dogmen.
Yeah. Mhm.
And killed everybody except one witness. The one boy who was a friend of the family got away. And you actually, he does talk about it. Like you could go online and listen to that boy. Now he's a man.
Mhm.
Talk about that experience.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but you could Google it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know one of the issues with the story is like a lot of I guess as it's gotten like passed on from person to person, a lot of like key details have changed, or people will keep on like adding things to the story or something like that. So it definitely takes away a lot of like the credibility surrounding it.
Yeah.
So
And, yeah, unfortunately, as you know, a lot of stories, there might be some truth to the original story, but as they grow and you write books and you do podcasts and they embellish those stories. But I will tell you this, my degree's in psychology and I study sociology. And one thing that happens, it's human nature. When you talk to an audience, whether it's 300 people or one person, you always try to sell your story to make it believable, for them to accept it. So when you try to sell it, you embellish it. So it doesn't matter what it is. So imagine something as remarkable as a Bigfoot encounter or a Dogman encounter. Of course, you're going to say the fish was this big instead of this big.
Yeah.
And especially men, men like to exaggerate the size of things. so anyway, that's my little joke there.
Speak for yourself, Charlie.
Someone had to say it. Yeah, but speaking of conferences, I know you recently emceed the Ohio Bigfoot conference. You got the Alabama Bigfoot conference coming up. You want to just tell us how those went?
Yeah, I mean the Ohio conference, I think they broke a record with attendance.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And it was funny, I had written all this dialogue, some of my jokes, and then Mark DeWorth loves to talk. So by the time I got to introduce each speaker, I had like a minute. And I did get Cliff really good though, because Cliff, he's funny. I sent out an email to each speaker. I asked him these questions like, what's your favorite movie? What do you like to do in your free time? Etc. And Cliff was like, I'm just some guy. You don't have to say anything. I'm just some guy, some dude. So when I went to introduce Cliff, I go, this man needs no introduction. And I gave him the mic. And I said, no, I'm just kidding. And then I properly introduced him.
That's awesome. Yeah, and he's a real nice guy too. I met him, where Lynette and I met at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference. I actually hung out with him and the other speakers the night of, and he was really, really nice, really, really personable. Really great person to have a conversation with. I definitely look forward to helping into him again in one of these conferences.
He's very down to earth, very approachable, like you said. Now I'll tell you this story real quick. And I took Cliff and Bobo squatching at Crypticon here in Kentucky. It's every year. It's in November. It's a huge conference, and usually Cliff is there, Bobo, Meldrum, all the big dogs. And Cliff and Bobo, I said, listen, I'll take you to one of my research areas in the Fraserland. So this is I think Thursday night. We get in my truck. We drive 40 minutes from the motel, and we get there, and this huge thunderstorm comes up. And I'm going, oh crap! Do you guys want to go back to the motel? And they go, no. Let's just wait here and wait it out. Like they really wanted to go squatching. They're passionate. It's not about the fame. It's not about the money. They're like a lot of us. We have a heart in it, and it's not about what some people think is based on money or fame.
Yeah, for sure. And the one thing too I really like about Cliff that I think really gives credence to just his authenticity is to my knowledge he hasn't actually seen one of these things yet, and he's pretty open. He's pretty open about admitting that. Especially for someone in his position, with all that limelight and fame and everything like that, you figure he might be not, I don't want to say pressured, but he might be like compelled to maybe embellish something like that a little bit. But yeah, he's very honest and straightforward about that. So that's really one thing I actually admire about him.
Well, I've never seen one up close, but we have a guest here that has seen one.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do. That's actually a great segue into you want to like break down your encounter, Lynette, or do you want the video? Do you want the video that we pulled from the KBRO site to do the explaining? I hope that's cool that we
you can do the video. That's fine.
All right, Brendan. You know what to do.
On September 27th, about 11:30, I had dozed off in my recliner on the other side of this window, and I woke up with a chilling feeling like somebody was staring at me, and I looked at the TV, and then I looked at my blinds, and I saw a little bit of a movement, and I thought it was probably this tree. And then I looked again, and I saw two shiny, glowing eyes looking down at me from almost to the top of that window. And at that point, I jumped on my recliner, turned the light off in the family room, and went to the far end of the couch and sat listening for noise. And about 10 minutes later, my dog started barking. And I went to the back door and saw she was at the fence barking and growling, and I ran and grabbed a flashlight and went out on the sun porch, but I could not see what was out there, and she would not stop barking and growling, and she came up to me where I was and leaned against me like she was protecting me, and that spooked me, so I backed back in, locked the door, and ran upstairs to my bedroom, to the bathroom, where my window angled down where I could see with the flashlight.
Can you describe the eyes again?
Yes, they were kind of golden, ambery color, very shiny, and they were probably this far apart. And I have a security light over here, and normally it is so lit up on this side I can see, but I could not see the security light. And the thought went through my head, where is the security light? And that's why I thought at first maybe the tree was blowing, but there's not enough of it to block, as you can see, the light. And then that's when I saw kind of a waver and then those eyes, and jumped up out of the chair.
Did you see a silhouette around the eyes?
I just saw, I didn't take time to look for the silhouette. I was up and out of that chair.
Jeez. I just want to know, like, when that incident happened, Lynette, like, what was going through your mind? How did you react physically? Like, what kind of shock went through your body when, that incident happened?
It took me a long time to admit that it was Bigfoot. I was adamant that it was some boys dressed up in a costume. I actually ran back in that family room, grabbed my phone, and as I'm running up the steps, I called one of my best friends, Karen, who had been there 2 weeks before, and Sammy was out there at that same spot barking and lunging, but she wouldn't let us out the door. And Karen's a night owl. She stayed up till way in the morning trying to get out the door to look around, because she's silly. She's not scared of anything. Everything that had been going on for like 2 years before then, I was like, oh, it's just coyotes. I don't know what it was about coyotes that made me comfortable. I would get woken up in the night because next to this big farmhouse was a pool house, but in between was a very dark, between that they could run through. It sounded like a herd of buffalo run through there. And of course, I'm like, it's just coyotes. It would wake you up. It was so loud. And then when I actually, after that incident, on that Friday night, and actually to finish that off, when I ran upstairs, I've got Karen on the phone, and I'm trying to shine the flashlight through the window, and of course it's glaring back. So I put her on speaker. I told her, I said, I got to lay the phone down, Karen. I got to raise the window. So I raised the window, and I caught something squatted down over by this tall bush next to the pool fence. And so I am angry because I just know it's two punks on each other's shoulders, dressed up, trying to scare me and my daughter. And so I'm shining the light, and I catch like the corner of it, because it wasn't like it's back to me. It was set at kind of an angle, squatted down. And I'm shining the light in its eyes, and I yell out the window, "I don't know who you are, but I've got a gun. You try to come in this house, I'm going to shoot you. By the way, I've called the cops." I no sooner got that out, that thing stood up, faced me, and let out this blood curdling, I call it a scream. I don't know what you call it, Charlie. I swear every hair on my body raised up. I backed up, slammed that window down, dropped the blinds. Karen is screaming in the phone, call the cops now.
Jeez.
And it took me a few minutes to remember she was on the phone, because I was like, what is that? So it was like 5 on Tuesday after that. It was about 10:30 at night. I'm in that same recliner, and it took its fingernails and went down the screen so hard it took the paint off the screen down to the metal. I thought it was those punks. And so I just unreclined, went on to bed. And about 2:30 that morning, Sammy's out there at that same spot by that tree. I'd always left the sliding glass doors open just enough she could get off the sun porch to go do her biz and come back in. And she's barking and lunging. She never would get right up to the fence. She stayed on this side of the tree. And so I went to work the next morning, and I called my friend Karen, and I asked her, I said, "Karen, you still have your gun?" And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "What are you doing this weekend? Will you come out? I promise I won't shoot anybody. I'm just going to shoot an air and scare these little punks away." You know, I still wouldn't admit what it was. So then later that day, because I'm a paralegal, and at that time I worked at an estate planning department in the law firm, a gifted teacher from the Shelbyville High School comes in to sign her estate planning. Well, after she signed, she's like, "Oh, where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, Podunk." And she's like, "Where is that?" And I said, "Henry County." And she goes, "Oh, that's Bigfoot capital of Kentucky." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't believe in that." She goes, "I don't think I would say that." And when I was talking to Karen, she had asked me if I watched the news the night before. Well, you know, I was trying to stay up to watch the news, but, you know, the scratch down the screen, I just went to bed. Apparently, there was an older lady that raised those pygmy goats, and something was stepping over the fence, picking 2 off a night. And the news was out there because they found footprint and hair stuck to the barbed wire. And so, and I'm like, "No, Karen." And so I went back downstairs, and I just kept hearing that teacher's and Karen's voice in my head. So I Googled Henry County, Kentucky Bigfoot sightings, and Charlie's website popped up, and flashing in red was a new report. It happened to be down the street from me.
No
So
kidding.
I read it. So I hit the contact us, and I told Charlie, I said, "I don't believe in this. I think it's hokey pokey, but if you want to come out and set up an investigation, I just want these people gone," you know? So he came out, and that's how we met.
So, Charlie, did you do the report for BFRO as well, or just the KBRO?
It's KBRO, my
Was it
organization.
Right,
At that
okay.
time, I was not a BFRO researcher. I am
You are.
now.
You
But
are.
what I love about this report, Bruce Tandy, another witness, saw a Bigfoot 15 minutes prior to Leonette's. Like
It was after.
after 15 minutes after, less than a mile away. So only a mile away, as the crow flies, he sees one walk right behind his truck. He saw deer, so he stopped his truck because of the deer, and he was watching the deer, and the deer were looking at something like towards his truck. And he looked in his mirror, and right at the back corner of his truck was this hairy torso. He saw it almost up to the chest in his mirror, and you could see that long reddish brown hair. And then, you know, he hit the gas and took off. So he had a sighting. And then the next morning, a mother and daughter saw a Bigfoot. Again, about a little over a mile away, a mother and daughter saw it cross the road, a little bridge. So you got 3 sightings there within, 12 hours.
Wow.
And all from people who don't know each other, have had no previous contact with each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, when instances like that happen, I really think it gives these alleged reports a lot of, it definitely gives them a lot of credence to that regard.
Mm-hmm. And if you listen to her, when I interviewed her, and I asked you, did you see a silhouette? A lot of times I'll ask certain questions to see if they will embellish it. Like, did it have long fangs? Like something crazy. I'll do that.
Right.
And if you listen to her, she said, no, I did not see the silhouette. It would have been really easy for her to say, oh, yeah, it had a big head and I could see the hair and the shoulders like some people do, but you could tell that she was very credible.
So what size are the Bigfoot down in Kentucky? I mean, I know because Ohio, they're like 8-9 feet. Florida, they're a little skinnier and smaller. New Jersey, we're about 7-8 feet. So you guys right around 8 foot, or you guys
Yeah,
bigger?
most of them right around 8 foot would be the average. We get 7 foot. We have up to 10 foot, which is Goliath, which is in Trimble County, which is the county just north of Henry County where Leonette's sighting was. That one there, based on the tracks, 20-inch plus tracks, we estimate that close to 10 foot. So we have a wide range of sizes. We have young ones too. They got to grow up. They're not all as big as Big Bobo, But yeah, we have a wide range.
Now, how about the fur? You said reddish orange or reddish brown. Are they?
Yeah.
You have gray and you have white down there as well,
Yeah.
or
Yes, we have
black?
white, black, reddish brown is the predominant color of most of them.
Interesting.
But we do have some white ones, gray ones, blackish, dark colored. It depends on the lighting too.
So Lynette, I know that for all viewers who don't know, Lynette was actually featured on the second Kentucky episode of Finding Bigfoot. She was one of the witnesses. I think it was Cliff who vetted you on that episode. So like, how did that come to be? How did you wind up being the how'd you wind up getting on that show and being the witness for that episode?
Charlie.
Charlie. Okay.
What I love is I'm good friends with Matt and I support the BFRO 100%. They have the largest database of sightings, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in every state, Matt has well-respected researchers doing the reports for him. So it's a legit organization, and I'd always admired it. But my organization was getting a lot of traction because we were number 1 on Google. So I'd get all the reports. So I asked Matt one time about joining, and he said, maybe, and he kind of didn't really. And now I do expeditions for him. So now I'm a BFRO investigator as well. But what I'm getting at is we had the first or second town hall meeting. I would say over 90% of the witnesses in the audience were my witnesses, which I'm proud of because it's a lot of work I do. It takes a long time to talk to them on the phone, to go meet them, to type up the report. There's a lot of hours and money involved.
Sure.
Real quick question: Were you approached by the expedition Bigfoot people when they were there a couple years ago, or they?
No, they didn't contact me. My feelings were hurt.
Oh yeah, I forgot. They were in Kentucky for season 2, right?
Yeah, they're the ones that went down towards Pine Mountain. It's the largest mountain in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. It's the southern part of Kentucky, southeast Kentucky. And they got that nest where they got a sample of hair from eDNA. They got eDNA from the nest, right?
Okay.
And it came back unknown primate. But what kills me on the internet when people would comment about it, all the skeptics, they would talk about what's her name, the female on there?
Dr. Mayer?
Mayer.
Yes. Yeah. She works with chimpanzees. So the DNA somehow got contaminated with chimpanzees it would come back chimpanzee then. the DNA would come back chimpanzee. It would come back unknown primate. So their argument didn't make sense. And it was tested, I think, in UCLA at the university there. So they had an unbiased, so to speak, lab tested as unknown primate. To me, that's exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
So real quick, another quick question. What do you think of the two shows, like the credibility of either or both of the shows, Expedition Bigfoot and Finding Bigfoot? Are you fans of them, or do you think they're doing good work?
Yeah, I'm fans. And people can nitpick about stuff, and they got to do some things for TV. They got to build the suspense, and they got to go to commercial break and, do things like that to build the suspense. Overall, though, Finding Bigfoot, they did legit research. And I'll tell you why. Okay. Bigfoot is highly intelligent. We all know that. Okay. I like to say they have a high environmental IQ. They've adapted over thousands of years to avoid us, basically. Finding Bigfoot did creative things to entice them, to get them to respond. Because a Bigfoot, to me, their biggest weakness is their curiosity. They want to see what we're doing in their living room at night. So they want to come up, check us out, and see if we're a threat, or see if they just want to observe us and see how we act and how we behave. So if you go out there and you do some little creative things, you act normal, you talk, you cook food, you laugh, that's what brings them in. Now the mountain monsters, and they're great guys. I met them all. It's a fun show, but that's not how we do research. You don't go out with guns and flashlights and camo. That's going to scare them off. So the premise of Finding Bigfoot is totally legit. They had great witnesses on there. And then Expedition Bigfoot too. I think they're doing a good job. I mean, some of it, you can nitpick about stuff, but overall, I think they're doing a pretty good job. I mean, they're really trying to check out areas and use thermal cameras and collect hair samples or eDNA. I think they're really trying their best. And the people what kills me is they say, oh, it's for TV. So it's for TV, they're going to fake stuff, right? It doesn't mean just because it's on TV, they're faking everything. There's not that. If you look at Expedition Bigfoot, they don't have all this remarkable evidence that, oh my gosh, it's just little stuff like a little eDNA, maybe a little heat signature here or there. They're not doing these remarkable finds.
Yeah.
So I really like what they're doing. There's nobody else out there doing it on TV, really. So I commend them.
So I wanted to ask, so I want to kind of elaborate a little more about just both of you guys, as your approaches out in the field. It sounds to me like you mostly prefer to go out and just act natural. Do you guys do anything to try and elicit a response like they do in Finding Bigfoot, like vocalizations, knocks, or anything like that? Or do you kind of stray away from that stuff?
I don't want to hog all the questions, so
I'm going to be right back. I'm going to get something to show you.
Okay, so while she's getting that, I'll explain some of that. Most of the time, you don't have to do a lot. I recommend subtle stuff, not a bunch of vocals, a ton of knocks. Go out there, walk around. Don't use white lights. Use red lights.
Yeah,
be a little subtle, but talk, laugh, be normal. We do tree knocks. To me, tree knocks are the best way to fool them, if you will. I've had great success doing multiple tree knocks, not one. To me, one loud home run knock means to them, lay low, we got people present, and it tends to get quiet with one knock. You do 3, 2, even 10 fast ones. Knocks with whoops, combinations of knocks and whoops work really well. Howls and stuff, I've had some replies call blasting that. My howl, all I do is elicit coyote. I get coyote, and that's it. So there might be somebody like Bobo that could do a really good one, but it's more subtle. If you go out, I tell anybody that goes out there, you don't have to do a lot. If you're in a squatchy area, just hike, be normal, and if you have something come close to you, try a couple little hand claps, a whistle, something light and see if something replies to get, so anyway, so Leonette, what'd you go get?
Hair. Big bag of hair.
Wow.
You go. What's the backstory behind that? Again? I think Toby told me about this once. What was the backstory again?
Yes, he was with me. There was a lady that I work with, and she got lost in the Black Bear Wilderness here in Florida after dark with her 2 dogs. And she was using her phone, like snapping photos as she was going for light. And because she didn't have a flashlight, and I don't know why she didn't use the flashlight on her phone, but that's Sarah. And she said something was following her and it smelled like poop. And it was paralleling her until she got out of the woods. She was calling her dad, scared to death. The dogs were freaking out and whining and trying to get out of there. She showed me one of her pictures, and there's reddish brown hair hiding behind the palmettos. So I'm like, that kind of sounds strange. So when Toby came to visit, we went to Black Bear Wilderness and stayed till after dark. And next to some footprints that we found, which we forgot our casting stuff that time, we found this big pile of hair. So I took my walking stick, picked it up. He held the bag open so he didn't get any human DNA on it, and sealed it up. And I was going to take it to Charlie at the recent spring expedition, but my plane got canceled. So because of mechanical problems. So I still have it, Charlie, for you when I see you, when I move back.
Here we go.
Yeah, I can't wait to look at that. Is it real long? Are the strands long?
Yes, they're long, and I've got a big wad of it. So
yeah, what's good about that sample is that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
To be
there's a little bit of some leaves stuck in it. Just a few leaves, but I wasn't going to pick them out because I didn't want to take a chance on getting human DNA.
So what's interesting? Yeah, good. Yeah, don't do that. That was in a Florida forest, which you would think you're not going to have horses or cows in a forest in Florida. Like horse mane or cow, cow tail. That's a lot of it. And bear, the hair's not that long on bear. There's black bear down there. So
right.
That's a pretty significant sample.
Yeah. It was just like right by these footprint tracks that we found off the track where people walk. It was kind of downhill. And of course, Toby and I, we jumped down off the trail, looking around. And then we actually had a photograph. I don't know if he sent it to either of you, where we caught a silhouette, and we caught you could see the legs.
Oh, the legs.
And the foot. He circled for me, and he cut off the foot. And I'm like, Toby, you didn't circle it all the way. You could see the foot turned. So we kept hearing like the branches were snapping. And I'm like, come on, we're not staying much later. It was getting dark, and that's when that started happening. And I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. First off, before I continue, I definitely want to give a shout out to my boy Toby. I know I'm pretty sure he's listening. He's listening in tonight, so definitely want to give a shout out to him. Before the show, we were talking about the awesome casts that he's found out where he lives. Too bad we don't have any images of that. Otherwise, I definitely like to throw those up. But yeah, it's
I don't know if a photo would show up.
Yeah, Toby's got some remarkable casts for such a young investigator just starting out. When he came to our motel here and he walked in and showed me these casts, I was impressed. Had nice toe splay, which is one thing you look for in a cast is toe splay. Humans our, from footwear, our toes are together. Thousands of years of wearing shoes, our toes are together. They don't. So you're going to see the toe splay on a cast, and his cast had toe splay.
Yeah, they're like more like spread apart and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And
I got tickled out. And the best one, I'm at work. He's texting me. He's like, there's this footprint full of water. And he's stressing out on it's going to get messed up. He's got to get this cast. That kid went home, got the shop vac, came back, vacuumed the water out, and cast it. And that was actually the best cast that he had.
And that's the amazing thing too about the the cast that he had. Like they're all different shapes and sizes, which I guess indicates that there could be more than one of those things out there. And he had some really interesting audio too that he had me listen to that he got a couple months ago. So he's in a really good area, it seems.
His poor cousins, he drags them out at midnight and they stay out till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning and get scared to death and run home.
No, that's what you got to do. He's a hardcore squatcher. He's a hardcore squatcher. I love hearing that.
You're not going to find him on your couch.
No.
Yeah. And it's good to see too, because like so many younger kids nowadays, like even my generation still, so many people are just like glued to their couch, binge watching their Hulu, their Netflix, or playing their video games or whatever. It's always nice to see like younger people take an interest in like stuff like this, just get outdoors more often and everything like that.
Oh, we'll be out every other weekend. He's already told me when I move back.
I know, I'm jealous. If you fly, especially if he gets his pilot license, you guys might have to fly out over to New York, pick up me and Charlie for a weekend.
I don't know if I'm going to be nervous. He's going to have to do a lot of begging for me to get in a plane.
Because that's what, like a 10-hour. It's like a 10-hour drive for us, right, Charlie? Kentucky. You are muted.
Let's see. Oh, am I muted?
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm good now?
Yeah.
Well, Tennessee's 10 hours, so that actually might be more. It might be like 12.
Yeah, so probably sounds about right. But Kentucky's definitely on my bucket list, though.
You need to do one of Charlie's expeditions.
Yeah, for sure. I know your one for the spring is sold out already, right, Charlie? The KBRO one?
Well, yeah, it's over.
Oh, it already happened. Okay.
But this Saturday morning at 10 a.m., so this Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, if you go to KentuckyBigfoot.com, we're going to have a link to register for the fall one. The fall one, Leonette, she knows where this is. We keep it on the down low.
Mm-hmm.
We don't divulge the area until you sign a non-disclosure. This one is the hottest spot in Kentucky. We've had multiple visual sightings on expeditions by credible witnesses. Multiple credible witnesses seen them. I can't guarantee, you're going to see one when you come on an expedition, but we had 3 days, 3 nights. It's a red hot area. We have guest speakers coming. We have hot meals, dinners, breakfast provided. It's a big to do. It's a lot of fun. If you've never done it, they usually sell out within 2 hours. I mean, the last one sold out within 2 hours.
Wow.
But what I try to do is put you on them. I try to use my knowledge of where they're at, because I've got my own private Google Maps of over 3 decades of research where I put pins that aren't online anywhere. And I've had my own experiences too, where I know where to go and I know where they're at. And so the probability goes up. So there's a good chance you might have an interaction. It might not be a visual interaction. It might be audio. It might be some whoops or knocks, tree pushed over, growls. We've had everything. Tents touched at night.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
walking around your tent.
The moonlight coming through the top of the tent, and some big silhouette stands over your tent and blocks the moonlight. I mean, amazing stories. If you ever want to come on one, we're serious about what we do. But besides the seriousness, we have a great camaraderie in the Bigfoot community. We meet wonderful friends. We share stories. We share research techniques. So I highly encourage anybody to go on one, not just mine. The BFRO has some. Other states have their own private ones. I really encourage that.
Definitely. So, like, how many people usually go? Do you like max out at like 40, like the BFRO expeditions usually do,
Yeah.
or?
It's around 40. The last one was 50. We had some squeeze in there.
Wow.
But here's what, and people say, oh my gosh, how are you going to have a sighting with that many people? What they don't understand, we divide up.
Mhm.
We have teams of 10 go in multiple directions. Some even drive to destinations. So these areas we go, we're talking thousands, tens of thousands of acres. We split up and then we try to have an interaction and determine where they're at. Once we determine that, we focus more on those areas and then we split up again in those areas. So the probability goes up because we're hitting more areas.
Yeah, it's kind of like the stock. It's kind of like trying to profit in the stock market. Like, you do what you do to stack the odds in your favor. There's no guarantees, but
yeah,
that's kind of works. Yeah. So, are they more based on your research and experiences? Are the areas that you focus on more active at a particular time of year, like the fall or spring, or is it more like a year-round thing? Or
so to have a sighting, you need two things. You need a Bigfoot and you need a person.
Mhm.
Most people are not out in the wintertime, so you don't have as many sightings.
Right.
I believe they're just as active in the wintertime because they've got to eat a lot of calories. We just don't have as many sightings because we're not out there. We have more sightings when people are in the woods, which spring and fall tend to be the hot areas. Summers, of course. We have sightings in the daytime. We have sightings at nighttime. I just surmise this. It's just a theory that they might have a polyphasic sleep cycle, meaning they might sleep 4 to 6 hours and then they wake 4 to 6 hours. They might have a sentry stand guard. So one will stand guard while the other ones sleep, and then they move. They constantly move because you don't want somebody to walk up on them, right? And there's a lot of medical benefits to that. You get deep REM sleep. There's a lot of medical benefits to the brain. They're less likely to be approached by a human walking up on them. And the other reason is we have sightings in the daytime and we have sightings at nighttime. So maybe they do take those little intervals of sleep. I don't know. But
yeah, it's all speculation. Were you about to say something like that?
I was going to say, Charlie, talk about the spider crawl.
Oh my gosh. So the last expedition. Now you think a lot of us researchers, I've been doing it a long time. I would have heard this spider crawl thing. I've never heard about it. I heard belly crawl. We hear belly crawl a lot, right? Which is kind of similar, but not spider. Spider's like sprawled out. I mean, arms and legs sprawled out like a spider, which is physically near impossible, right, for a human to do. A human can't. I don't think he can do that. Right. The strength, the core strength, the arm. I mean, forget about it. On the last expedition, so I'm going to kind of summarize this. We're in a hot area. There's been sightings there, activity there on this particular trail multiple times. This one team was out there, and I'm just going to summarize this. There's a lot that happened. The one gentleman gave we use the word newbie. My wife doesn't like that word newbie, but it was his first time out there. But he's a veteran. He's fought in multiple wars, so nothing really phases him. You know, he's a pretty tough guy. The gentleman gave him a pulsar, one of the new pulsar thermals, which is, remarkable. The definition on it. Handed it to him. Did not show him how to hit record though, which I wish he would have showed him how to hit record. So he said, "Here, take this." They leave. They hear some big commotion on the trail right behind them. They swing around. He gets it under thermal. Spider crawling like a 1,000-pound spider, go right across the trail. And now I'm talking this is within like 40 yards, like very close to their location, on a clear, like a gravel trail that's real wide. He had got a good look at the legs sprawled out, the arms sprawled out, the belly almost to the ground, massive. We did reenactments. We did some guy that was he's 6'4", I think. Frank, I think he's close to 6'4", big guy. He couldn't even do it. He had to like crawl like a dog, like a bear. He couldn't do that. He said this thing was thicker than him. The limbs were stretched all the way out though. Like, I don't even know how an animal could do that. So it was exciting, right? We did a reenactment of all the guys, very believable. The next morning at our meeting when we discussed all this, he was still in his tent. His now wife comes out and she goes, he's shaken up by that. He goes, he's fought in war. He's had to kill people. He goes, this really scared him. When he saw that, the size of that thing, I mean, it kind of tore him up a little bit. And then since then, I've found multiple reports of them spider crawling, like multiple witnesses claiming to see that behavior. So
that's crazy. So are you in the flesh and blood camp then, or is there any chance there might be paranormal?
I'm more flesh and blood. I'm more flesh and blood. Leonette, what are you?
I'm more flesh and blood.
Yep.
But I'm open-minded. I've had unexplainable things happen. I will tell you. We've had large orbs where there's been Bigfoot sightings. We never see them together, though. You see maybe in the same area, but I've never seen a Bigfoot turn into an orb or an orb turn into a Bigfoot. So I'm open-minded to that. I just think that they've adapted over thousands of years. Their senses are far superior to our senses. They're the ninjas of the forest. They could disappear in a blink of an eye. All it takes is a blink of an eye, and they're gone. I don't think they went through a portal. I think you blinked your eyes, or you look down for a second, they're gone. Or they drop down in tall grass. They're super fast, super stealthy. Their hair, maybe it could refract light. There's a lot of it's called crypto coloration. If you Google crypto coloration, you'll see animals that blend in with their environment. They're sitting right there. There's an owl sitting right in front of the tree. You don't see the owl till it moves. Movement gives it away. So, it could be explained with biology. But there are Nephilims in the Bible, right? In Genesis, the giants, the fallen angels mated with human females. So maybe they're Nephilim descendants or et cetera. Maybe they are alien related. I mean, I'm open-minded to that. We just don't have the answers.
Yeah, that's kind of my explanation. That's kind of how I downplay or dismiss a lot of the supernatural, paranormal narrative. I just think it's a combination of wishful thinking and people just using it as a filler to explain things that they really can't they really can't adequately or logically explain, because when something happens, I'm sure you could attest to this, Lynette, it's it's a real shocking, traumatic experience,
Yes.
your body, your body gets rocked. It probably takes your mind a few seconds to really process what's happening. And when something that traumatic happens, when you're a psychology major, Charlie, tell me if I'm on track with this. When something traumatic like that happens, your brain, I guess because it struggles to process it, kind of blacks out certain patches or stretches of time. So, I guess to rationalize that, people say, oh, well, it just disappeared or vanished into thin air, when in reality, the whole thing just kind of fucked you in the head so badly that.
Charlie, do you remember the time that you came out and we were looking under a tree where there was an opening, it bent over, and to the right of us, I guess it was a Bigfoot, let out that big scream, and I stood up. My brain is telling me to run, but it was like my feet were poured in concrete. And of course, Charlie is right there, and I, in a shaky voice, say, "Charlie, did you hear that?" I couldn't move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that innate fight or flight that kicks in. And, the psychology of it is you fill in the missing pieces of what you experienced in your life. So what you know from your experiences and what you've learned, you fill in those missing pieces. I might be doing that myself. I could be biased towards the flesh and blood thing based on my science background.
Mhm.
Other people might be
Well,
more,
Charlie,
religious, and they fill in that part with the religious aspect of it.
have you seen one or no?
Um, Not up close. There's one time I think I saw two about 75 yards across a creek, and the bright sunlight, all full black, covered in black, is a Bigfoot area. We had drove around to both sides. There's a swamp. There are no trucks on either side. There's no way to get back there. We hiked in there. So it didn't add up that those were people walking in this swamp completely in black on a hot sunny day. So maybe that was, I can't say for certain.
Honestly, that's saying that's like my experience. I'm not saying it was, but when it's 90 degrees out and 80% humidity, someone's gonna be real stupid to be in a ghillie suit in July.
Yeah.
So we actually got
one already.
we actually got a question here in the chat. Pat from Squatch Talk asks, how do we move the ball down the field? What's the next big thing or tactic to do to make that happen?
The thermal cameras now and the drones are pretty big. The eDNA is pretty big, but the the drones, what would really benefit us from that, if we're in an area where there's Bigfoot and we've got a really good drone with a thermal, there's not a lot of tree coverage. You got to go maybe in the fall or the winter time, and you can get one on a drone, and then maybe have enough manpower to get around it or close to it. I've got areas in Kentucky, which we're fortunate. In Kentucky, I believe they're landlocked. If you ever come here or you visit the state, there's these forests that are, 10,000 acres or so, where I know they're at, but there's around it, surrounded by neighborhoods and shopping centers, but I know they're in there. If we had enough manpower to encompass that area with some really good technology, we might get some evidence. But it doesn't matter. I mean, ultimately, it's going to take a body. You can get the best video, and people are going to deny it. It doesn't matter. So it's going to take a body, really. I hate to say it, but maybe we find one that died of natural causes.
So you're kill or no kill then?
I'm no kill, but I'm no kill with a squirrel. Like, I won't kill. I'll wreck my truck to miss a squirrel. But some people believe, like in Texas, there's a group down there. They believe you need one specimen, and that will protect the species. So there's a good argument to that. If you kill one, maybe you could protect the entire species.
Yeah, it's kind of like kill a few to save 1,000. That analogy.
Yeah.
I wonder if you shot one, though, if you'd make it out alive, if the others would not rip you to shreds. There's no way I would shoot at one.
No.
Even if put yourself in like a hunter situation. They're in their stand. They're looking through their rifle scope. They see this thing walking on 2 feet. In addition to all the other things that are going through their mind, there's probably that sense of doubt. Like, okay, if I pull the trigger, one or two things are either going to happen. I'm either going to make history. Or commit a felony, because this could very well be this could very well be a person. I mean, I hunt, I hunt, and I've only shot one deer, but that one particular instance, though, even though it was blatantly a deer, I still kind of had that sense of doubt, what if something could go wrong after I pull that trigger that I'm not expecting or anticipating. So when a lot of these hunters, they see that have these stories, I can only imagine what's going through their head. It's kind of understandable why one hasn't really shot one of those things that we know of yet. If that makes any sense.
Well, I have a quick question, and I apologize, Charlie, for always asking you the questions. But you've been doing it for 30 years, right? Now, do you ever like get like a lull where you're like I got to hang up the boots for a season, or are you just that into the the study of this
No, I get
subject?
that. I get discouraged.
No.
The
How do you stay
discouragement.
motivated?
I get
Two-part
motivated
question.
by the witnesses. To be honest, when I have witnesses contact me, and most witnesses have everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about that, right? They could be ridiculed. They could lose their jobs. They don't get paid money, right? Most of these witnesses, I think none of them do. All the TV shows, I guarantee you, they don't get paid a penny. I was on TV shows. I didn't get paid anything. So, yeah, they might do it for fame or their little some attention, but most witnesses will be ridiculed. So they have everything to lose by doing it. But when the witnesses come forward and they're credible, they're in areas where I've had multiple sightings, I get pumped up. I get excited about it. I watch the documentaries. I watch all the TV shows, and I get pumped up watching a good documentary on it, like anybody else. What discourages me is, honestly, some of the politics in Bigfooting, a lot of the jealousy, a lot of the skeptics, a lot of the hoaxes. You get kind of discouraged with some of that stuff. But whenever that happens, and I'm talking about even within my circle, if you get some people that you have to part ways with for whatever reason, there's a lot of reasons. I get discouraged, and I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on interviewing witnesses. That's my specialty. I'm going to interview more witnesses, put it out there, and just focus on that. Other people like Tom Shea, who does casts, he might go out and say, well, I'm going to get more casts in. Screw those people. Right. I'm just going to do what I do best. So right. you do have ups and downs in this thing. It's a lot of fun, though. If you go out there in the woods at night, hiking, it's an adrenaline rush.
Sure. So I was curious. I was curious, Charlie, especially now that I know that you study, you have a psychology degree. I'm sure you've interviewed, tons of witnesses over the years. I was curious what some of the red flags are that you look out for or recognize that gives you reason to believe that, that makes you think, all right, maybe this person is BSing me, or maybe this isn't really what they think it is, or just, something along those lines. What are some of those major red flags that you look for?
Well, typically you ask open-ended questions, let them fill in the details. One red flag is if they embellish it too much. If you ask them, then if you're suspicious, and then you say, okay, let me ask a question like I mentioned before, did it have long fangs? Did it have long claws or some crazy thing? If they go on about that, like, oh yeah, and it had these long fangs and had blood dripping down from its mouth, or you could tell they didn't add that early on. Or I'll tell you here's a common one. This one's even more common. I get people that will call me and they'll tell me, oh, I heard a couple tree knocks the other day by my property. And then, oh, by the way, I saw one a year or so ago. To me, seeing one is what you would open with. That's what you would start with. Like, hey, I had a Bigfoot sighting, and it happened here, and I've had tree knocks since then. But when they open up with a couple tree knocks or a couple crazy vocals, and then during the conversation they go, oh yeah, by the way, I saw one. That doesn't add up to me a little bit. But I will tell you this: if they laugh in an interview, it does not mean they're lying. It's human nature when you tell a remarkable story, like seeing a Bigfoot, and you kind of chuckle because you don't know if that person's gonna do you believe me? Do you not believe me? That's kind of common. So we got to try to get down to the facts of what they saw, and then based on their behaviors and so forth, as the story goes, you could tell pretty much when they're just faking it. It's just too much remarkable evidence. Like the Bigfoot was right there and it grabbed me. It grabbed my butt.
Right.
The Bigfoot grabbed her ass. The Bigfoot didn't grab
nice.
Me. What are you talking about? I'm serious. I did take that report. On an expedition. That happened on an expedition. She said she was at the end of the line and the Bigfoot grabbed her ass.
Well, that's
You're not going to get sued for harassment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sexual harassment.
So Lynette, what now? You people or witnesses tell you experiences as well, right? Or not really?
I do. I have people that tell me stuff. I still have people in Kentucky that will message me, and I always refer them to Charlie to get in touch with them.
Have you ever had any like non-flesh and blood witnesses, or has it mostly been like the tree knocks and stuff like that? I'm just trying to, get a feel for what you've heard.
I've had a couple of the I'm not really sure how they described it, because I kind of dismissed it in my mind, like, no, this doesn't happen, because I'm flesh and blood. I've seen the flesh and blood. So I know that there's paranormal, and I've watched the documentaries about the aliens and the Bigfoot, like the relationship between the two, that when there's been alien sightings, there's been Bigfoot sightings, and it's like, I just don't know that I buy into that at all. I know that when I've been on an expedition, and specifically at an undisclosed spot with Charlie's group, I have been woke up in the middle of the night with this weird singing kind of noise, and of course I'm thinking, what on earth are the people next to me listening to at 4:00 in the morning? Wow. And then my memory went back to the year before. There was another couple camped right up from us, and when I came out of the tent the next morning, and I actually brought a friend with me that time, they're like, what were you two singing in the middle of the night? And it was that same area. I will not camp, and that's also where, when my alarm woke up, there was something at my head on the outside of the tent, and I'm the only one camped down there by myself.
So when you say singing, was it like, did you feel like threatened?
That kind of noise.
So creepy, or is it like soothing, or is it like, did you feel threatened?
No, it was just like I did. It was just like,
so annoying, basically. Words.
It was just this. I don't know if you would. I don't know that I'd call that a humming, but it's like, and then I could hear the people next to me. I could hear their CPAPs, because they both had CPAPs, and I could hear it going. And I'm like, well, that's not them. And then I remembered
Vader.
I remembered the year before, and coming out of the tent and getting accused of singing in the middle of the night. And it's like, this was the same camping site. I'm going to quit camping on this site.
I think David Ellis of the Olympic Project, he has like a specific category of vocals that he calls singing. Lynette, when at the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference, I had you listen to those howls we got at Allegheny National Forest about a year and a half ago. When because David Ellis, he reviewed those for us, and he said they fall into that quote singing category. So just like the fact that you use that word singing to describe it, I found that particularly interesting.
It doesn't really sound like a humming. How you would, Yeah, so I think maybe it's either a paranormal way of seeing, and I know that lots of people were killed for that land back there. So, there could be paranormal spirits wandering around too. So I watched the documentary on that place on the History Channel, and I was just made me sick what our government did, but that's another story. Yeah. So, and Charlie can tell you that people have said they've seen things that were not flesh and blood, not to do with Bigfoot, though, where we were.
Well, that's a good point. Sometimes, if you think about it, it could be apparition of a Bigfoot, a spirit of a Bigfoot. Like we get apparitions of people, right, that are deceased. We see apparitions. So maybe this is a deceased Bigfoot. You're seeing that apparition and it comes in and goes out. So maybe you're actually seeing a spirit of a Bigfoot and not actually
That's true.
It's flesh and blood and it's cloaking.
And I did some research for an article for an article I wrote, and I looked at the top 10 states, like in terms of like cumulative views, cumulative reports and per capita for Bigfoot sightings, UFO reports, and ghost sightings. And especially in the per capita section, there was actually a considerable amount of overlap, which I found particularly interesting. The other thing too is, just because you go out into like the woods or a location looking for Bigfoot doesn't mean you won't encounter some other type of phenomena. Like, you guys fish at all?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like how often, how often have you gone like fishing, targeting bass, but you wind up, getting a trout or a pike or something like that, or, something you're not really targeting. I guess you could kind of like equate it to that. So I do want to, I did check out some interesting videos that you have on your KBRO site. I was wondering if it's okay if we could just look at a couple of them and just, get your guys's, thought, just like, your thoughts and commentary on them. The first one I wanted to look at was the thermal video from 2010 of the purported juvenile doing like a belly crawl, something like that. So, Brendan, if you could play that now, I'll watch that, and then maybe you could give us like some, like elaborate on the backstory of it. So, yeah.
You want me to? I can talk as this is going, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so where this was, it took 45 minutes to get to the top of the mountain. We're the only ones there, so I could pretty much rule out people. We had went back up to this spot because about an hour prior, a group had come down claiming that one of the ladies was zapped, hit with infrasound. A lot of us believe they emit infrasound, makes you distraught, upset, disoriented. She was very upset. They came back down. We went up there, and the guy that was with me had a thermal flare, and he recorded that. And it might show it again here in a second here. But we walked back up that same trail, and we turned because we jumped something big. Like something big took off running. We're like, oh my gosh. And we turned and got quiet. He videotaped this, which you can see here if you watch real closely.
That white.
Yeah, but watch. This might be the longer one. Oh, here you go. Watch. It looks like something belly crawling.
Mm.
You can see that the head will pop out in a second. It's the leg and the arm. You see the arm will stick out here in a minute. Watch the arm come out up front. There's the rear end and the back on the far side there with a couple legs maybe. It's long, but it stayed there for almost 7 minutes as we're talking and videotaping this thing. And this guy, he was not really into Bigfooting, and he didn't want anything to do with it. So he gave me the video. He had already spliced it together, so it doesn't show the whole thing, unfortunately. But in the end of it, you kind of see a head pop up farther back. Like back there, you see kind of a head. It kind of sticks its head up. There's a lot of vegetation blocking it. You can't say for sure it's a Bigfoot. But, you think about bear and deer. If you jump a bear or a deer, they're just going to take off, typically. Yeah. They're going to hang around for 7 minutes, and you therm that like we did, almost like it's belly crawling. So we think maybe it was some juvies, some young ones. And the night before, we were on the same trail, and a skeptic was behind me, ran up and said, oh my gosh, something big just ran behind me on the trail bipedal, like thump, 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 right behind me. And what I'm getting at with all this is the juvies, a lot of reports of the juvies being mischievous, like they like to play, Maybe it's initiation. We've got reports of them running through camp at night and knocking things over like real loud and running out of camp. So, we kind of think maybe we jumped. I actually think there was 2 of them. We jumped 2 juvies and they started to run.
Wow.
And then they go, oh my gosh, we don't know the protocol. Protocol is to stay, just stay motionless behind a tree. They started to run and they got down to their bellies. And we got the one there on its belly. Again, we were just speculating on a lot of this stuff, but it was interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Really, definitely really intriguing. Now, was this the one that happened along the power lines, or was that another?
No, so this one was in Tennessee. This was actually on a BFRO expedition way up at the top of a mountain. So, and when you park up there, there's only one spot to park. You go down this trail. It was very remote. It couldn't have been a person. Doubtful. So you kind of process of elimination. You rule out every other animal. Yeah. What would a coyote do? What would a bear do? A deer do? That was a typical behavior of what we observed there. And we had casts. We casted the day before. We had tree knocks. We had sightings, a long history of sightings. So again, it kind of points in that direction, but again, we can't say for sure.
Wow. Yeah, like going back to what you're saying about, like ruling out all the other animals, because like you said, a lot of them, kind of react to that fight or flight thing. Like, when if you startle a deer or something like that, it's gonna bounce from that. It's gonna bounce from that area. It's gonna run for probably like a quarter mile or so.
Yeah.
Same with bears. Like, Charlie, tell me about that incident we had. Tell me about that experience we had in North Jersey. That one witness's house that we.
With the tree knock and the tree push down.
Yeah, like we hiked up to the power lines. We heard that like shuffling.
Yeah, we heard some loud shuffling, and then we thought they sounded like what happened to me. We thought they happened. It was like a bipedal. It sounded big, and then Mike did some rock clacks, and then we didn't hear anything back. But then we took the power lines back down to the street, and we walked the street back to the lady's house, or the witness's house. And when we were on her deck, that's when we got a tree pushed down, some rock clacking, and then a tree knock. So it was nice. kind of, and as that lady was actually, that property was actually featured on Finding Bigfoot, I think in season 4. So
yeah, the North Jersey episode, I believe.
Yeah, and that was in it's right along with the Appalachian Trail, but it was a lot of houses. It was like a neighborhood. Granted, a lot of the houses were foreclosed, so there wasn't a lot of people living in the neighborhood, but still, it was definitely a neat experience to have, considering that we weren't, really expecting to have much.
Yeah, because it was weird. We hiked about a quarter, because so like her backyard was at the foot of like a ascending slope, like a hill or a mountain, whatever you want to call it. So we hiked about a quarter mile in. We got to the power lines, that opening, and we just started like walking, and we just heard something out in the brush, just like really loud, like almost like a shuffling, scurrying type sound. But going back to what we said, if it was like a bear or a deer or something like that, it would have continued to move. This thing just sounded like, kind of just like just like jolted or like adjusted itself or whatever. And then that was that. Like, to my knowledge, I don't really know any animals that are mindful enough, that are like mindful or smart enough to do something like that. So, again, I'm not saying, like it was Squatch activity, but like, definitely touches on what you were saying before, Charlie. So that's why I wanted to, that's why I wanted to bring that story up. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's an exciting experience, because you did some provoking. You did some things that they do, like rock clacks is common. And then you went back, and then you had all this interaction, which, I mean, what clacks rocks, what knocks on trees, and what are the coincidence? You had just done that. You're in a very squatchy area, and then you get to hear that. So you rule out everything else, unless there's a person out there messing with you. Mm-hmm. Animals don't do that.
It was weird, because it was at time of night where everyone pretty much they weren't doing any more yard work. There's no one working on their houses, so it's not going to be like something hammering. When we were walking up through the woods to go to the power lines, yeah, I had to relieve myself, so I'm sure I aggravated whatever's up there by, but
Leaving your scent.
Even the woman was like, "Oh no, you didn't go to." I'm like, "Well, I had to use the bathroom." So so she's like, "Oh," so I don't know, but she's very, she says she has him visit her house constantly, and like I said, it's right off the Appalachian Trail. So, it was in New Jersey, so we don't have a lot of land, but we do have, some state parks and.
But you know what though?
some
That's
areas.
that's the thing about New Jersey. Like I'm sure to you guys, I'm sure to you guys, you think New Jersey, you think small, densely populated state, people all over the place, right? In reality, the majority of the population in New Jersey, like 80% of it, is in that little northeast corner, right by New York City, and down the shoreline. The rest of New Jersey is literally just farms, forests, and mountains. It's really, it's pretty wide open. People are a lot more spread out, like the more inland you get. So I want to keep us moving here. There was another interesting video I came across that I wanted to get your thoughts on. It was looks like you guys did like a wood knock, and then you got some type of return howl. Can you play that one, Brendan? So, what was the story behind that, and what gives you reason to believe that whatever made that vocalization could have been a squatch?
Well, first of all, where that is kind of near where Leonette's moving. Just so you know.
Oh, wow! All right.
Where that happened was behind a sheriff deputy that had multiple sightings on his property.
Mm-hmm.
So I was back there where you had a sheriff deputy seen him, park rangers have seen him. So I was in a really credible area, a lot of other Bigfoot reports as well. Very remote area. You can see it's getting dark. And I took that large tree and whacked that. And those are the best knocks. The real wood on real wood. It's even better than a baseball bat, So that howl came back. And I'm going to have you play that again in a second for your viewers, because I did not hear this in person. We heard the one howl. I have a guy who's a crypto-linguistic specialist. He goes by an alias online. He does all the Bigfoot vocals and so forth, and I gave him that. He amplified it. There's another return howl. So listen closely to the main one, and then a few seconds later, there's another howl.
Brendan, play it again. And the first time I listened to that when I was at work this morning, the first time I listened to that, I didn't catch that second return howl.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Wow. And,
the howl, it like descends. It doesn't like a coyote or a dog would bark. It's not a typical howl that you hear from a dog or coyote if you really listen to it.
Yeah, like it definitely sounds too like both those howls could have very well been made by two different creatures. So
yeah, it was strange because dogs are usually bark. If you're out there by a house, which we weren't, by the way, we're miles from any house. But if it was a dog, they tend to bark if people are near.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, Lynette, you got to keep us posted on. You got to keep us posted on the activity in that area.
Yeah. When you moving back?
Memorial Day weekend.
Oh wow!
Okay,
Very soon.
Congratulations. Very cool.
Well,
I'll be out with that. That's awesome.
I'll tell you where to go.
Okay.
But you've got to keep it quiet.
I will.
It's one of my. I've got 4 spots in Kentucky. That's probably my second hottest spot.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So
Wow.
I'll have the toaster with me.
Yeah. AC seems to be the good luck charm for having all that activity.
It
So
doesn't
there's
matter where we go. It seems like we have something happen. We have camped before. We got lost on the trail after dark. Our headlights went out for some reason. Of course, they came back on when we got off the trail. So we had his dog with us on the leash, and she kept trying. We were being paralleled. We finally get off the trail, walk up the road back to our tent. We make s'mores, cook some hot dogs, go to bed. He wakes me up and he's like zipping up his windows, and it's hot as can be because it's Labor Day weekend.
Mhm.
And I'm like, Toby, what are you doing? And all of a sudden, his dog is going from his side of the tent to my side of the tent, laying against us. And I don't know if I got zapped because I was fine. I wasn't sick. All of a sudden, I got sick and started throwing up like crazy. And this is gross. Thank goodness I had an empty cooler next to my mattress because it went in the dumpster after that. But when we got up the next morning, because I kept telling Toby, you're imagining things. You're just hearing things. I always downplay him, and I shouldn't. It never fails. When we got up the next morning, I had my lab, Sammy, with me, who is now across the Rainbow Bridge. And he had his dog, Maggie, and we went back to walk into the woods behind the tent to let them go to the bathroom. And there were 3 different colored rocks stacked on top of each other. And of course, he was quick to say, see, I told you there was something at my foot. And so I wish we had kept or taken pictures instead. Without thinking, he picks up the rocks and hurls them one by one into the trees. Yeah. So, and then we were like, oh, we should have taken a picture of that, after. But we decided then that we were not spending another night there alone. We packed up the tent and we left.
Well,
So
you know,
you guys-
notice. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charlie. I'm going to cut you off.
I was just asking, do you guys believe in gifting? Do you
Yes.
when you go out there,
I think that's what the
marbles
rocks were. I think they were gifting us for getting out of the
yeah, for sure.
And it's interesting. And like the other thing too is like you guys know, like given your experiences and familiarity with the subject, you know what to look for when you're out there, out in the woods. So like things that most people, and if these things are real, I wouldn't be surprised if this happens more often than not. A lot of things will just go over people's heads, or they won't realize it. That it's like Bigfoot related activity. You guys are mindful enough to be like, oh, that right there, like that's a sign, or
Oh, I had a great teacher, Charlie. Because I have worked in the legal field. I'm the crypt keeper for 39 years. I'm very skeptical. I don't take things. That's why it took me 2 years to admit what was on that farm. I wanted to know the who, why, where, So Charlie was kind enough to let me tag along on several things with him researching. So he taught me a lot.
Yeah, for a flesh and blood though, you seem like you have a lot of paranormal experiences though, or a decent amount.
Yeah, but I don't think that was paranormal. I think there was flesh and blood that left the rocks out there.
You know what though? One thing, it's kind of a tricky situation because even though we know what to look for, you got to be cautious because one thing we've learned is you got to slow down. When you're in the woods, slow down. Watch your surroundings. Don't hike real fast. Look at things, inspect them, analyze them. Was this structure? Were the trees from the structure from something that fell from above? Was it the bend in the tree? Was it due to ice load or the wind? You really got to rule out Mother Nature and man for making some of the structures. And a lot of it is we're in areas where there's been Bigfoot reports. So that helps a little bit. But I caution everybody from having Bigfoot on the brain. When you go out there and everything is Bigfoot, you really need to analyze what you're looking at thoroughly. And like I try to do, I try not to say it was Bigfoot. I try to say, rule out this, and this. What could it have been? The percent goes a little higher. Maybe it could have been Bigfoot, maybe. So you got to really watch the Bigfoot in the brain. Everything's Bigfoot. But then also you really need to go slow and analyze everything.
For sure.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, you touch on a really excellent point there too about how you have to just go slow and be more mindful of your surroundings out in the woods, because I think, like, especially given how, elusive these things supposedly are and how well they blend in, how you're talking about how naturally, like animals blend in with their surroundings, where the only time you'll know they're there is when they move or something like that. When like a lot of the times when people are out in the woods, and like I've noticed this too, just like when I catch, when I put out trail cameras, sometimes I'll catch the occasional hiker every now and then. I feel like 90% of the time, especially when you're moving, people are either looking in one or two places. They're either looking down at their feet to make sure they have their footing, to make sure they don't trip over something, or they're just looking directly, directly ahead. So think about if you walk, for just like a mile out in the dense woods, like even taking, like a possible Bigfoot out of the equation, think of what other like sizable wildlife we're probably missing just by, just by subconsciously looking in one of those two areas 90% of the time that we're on the move. So, like people a lot of skeptics say, well, if they're abundant in the area, people would see them all the time. When you take those factors into consideration, I think you have a pretty strong argument that could say otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. And a couple, one thing, if you go to an area where there's been a lot of reports, and that's why witnesses are crucial. Their testimony is crucial because we know where to go then to look for structures or tracks or hair because of all the witness sightings. Witnesses also tell us how they behave. We don't know how Bigfoots behave. The only way we know how they behave is what witnesses have observed. If you think about it,
yeah,
we know how they look. We know what Bigfoots look like based mostly on witnesses, other than the PG footage. There's a couple other footages out there, but mostly it's eyewitnesses descriptions of their faces and etc. So we got to go to those areas where the witnesses see them. You got to go slow, like you said. Look around your surroundings, sit for a while, and then they'll come to you. If you eat food and you laugh and you talk and you just have a good time and you're in a hot area, you don't have to walk far. Let them come towards you, and then maybe you have an interaction with them.
That's what Tom said last year at the OBC. He's like, he just sets up camp and he lets them come to lets them come to him. So I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm not that lucky, but at least someone is.
Yeah. So we are, So it looks like we are running out of time. There were just two things I wanted to cover real quickly. You talked about tree structures before, and like you cited tree structures and everything like that. Actually, when Toby had me and Chuck on our podcast, we actually had a little back and forth about this topic. But me personally, I don't really buy into tree manipulations or tree structures. I just think it's. Me personally, I just think it's, instances of wishful thinking, people with Bigfoot on the brain. They go out there, they want to find, possible evidence of these creatures. I think that's just, their fix, how you'd say. Where I was just curious, like if you guys could elaborate more on your stance on what you think of them, and if it's something you think is Bigfoot connected, how would you convince someone who's kind of skeptical about their possible ties to Bigfoot to make them think otherwise, or open their mind to think otherwise?
Well, it's like you said, we don't know. We haven't observed a Bigfoot making those structures.
Mm-hmm.
there's not many accounts of a Bigfoot making a TP structure or etc. But you do find those. You do find them in areas where there's been Bigfoot sightings. So you tend to put two and two together and think, well, are they marking their trail? Are they marking their territory? Maybe, the rock stacks. We know Native Americans made cairns and so forth to mark trails, but we don't know Bigfoots have actually done that unless you see them do that. And some things are odd. There's the twists. I'm talking trees that are 4 to 6 inches. Twisted and wrenched around and bent over, like almost impossible for a storm to do that. And there's no other tree damage to the neighboring trees. So you're like, okay, that's odd. We know Bigfoots are powerful and strong, and maybe they did that. Again, it's all speculation. We don't know. But it's fun. It's fun to go look and think maybe a Bigfoot made it.
How about you, Lynette?
I look for the twists for me to consider, or if there's nowhere that limb or branch could have fallen from. If it's high up in a tree, I start looking up and looking at the neighboring trees. How close is that tree in a storm? If it, lightning struck it and it broke off, or the wind snapped it, could it have landed there? I kind of decipher that. I'm not big on structures either.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I wouldn't be surprised accounts for a lot of like bizarre structures. Like a lot of proponents of structures, they say, well, if this stick that's from a totally different tree, how could it have gotten there? I've seen videos of like trees getting struck by lightning, and tree limbs and branches, they'll fly in different directions. They'll do like little spinnings up in the air and land. Yeah. And I just, like Mother Nature, especially weather and stuff like that, could do really, really crazy things. I gotta look. I gotta do a little more research before I have like a response about the actual twists. But
maybe if there were no caves for them to hide in, or empty barns, or maybe I would, if I found structure, I would think they were sheltering themselves or their juveniles from the weather. But
yeah,
I would have to look at it.
So, like I said, we are running a little low on time. There's one more thing I wanted to cover before we have to wrap up. I came across that really interesting photo of the possible Bigfoot tooth on your site. If you want to pull that up, Brendan, for everyone to see. When you get to it, there it is. Yeah. So, Charlie, what's the backstory behind this, and what characteristics about this object here give you reason to believe it could be like a possible Bigfoot tooth? How have you ruled out like other possible animals and all that?
Actually, I did not know that was still on the website. That came from a former researcher in our organization who interviewed this witness, 25 years ago.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I never met him. He found it. He would not give the tooth up to be tested or even looked at by a biologist. So we don't know if it's a cow's tooth. We don't know. Well, it's not a cow's tooth. I think it's pointed, but we don't know what it is. But he would not give that tooth up. So I never met the witness, so I don't know anything about it other than it's pretty big.
Yeah, for sure. Is it? Have you ever seen like teeth or canine teeth of like gorillas or large primates? I'm curious if there's maybe any similarities with those, or.
Well, a lot of reports I get from eyewitnesses who come literally face to face with a Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, they're wide. Their teeth are flat and wide and big, but there has been some cases of some canine, especially in the younger ones. It seems like the juvies and so forth have a little bit of canine going on. So I get reports of both, but most of them tend to be flat.
Interesting. Yeah, and like, isn't that like a known tendency that like primates do? I think maybe like a couple of other animals on that spectrum, like they'll like flash their teeth, I guess, as like a defensive gesture or sign of aggression or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of these they open their mouths. Like I had one encounter with a guy. Long story. It's on my website. Under the YouTube channel, there's a witness there. His name is Jack. I can't think of his last name. It's not on there. But anyway, his sighting, the Bigfoot came up to his truck when he was a boy and looked in the window of his truck. And then it looked human-like, human features, the large eyes, the thin lips. But when it opened its mouth, he saw some canine, and he saw the saliva spread as it opened its mouth. Which, of course, he laid on the horn, to get his friends to come back. But that Bigfoot was right in his window. It took up the entire window of the truck, looking at him.
And like the fact that he mentioned, like the saliva spreading, like it's little subtle details like that, like a lot of these witnesses include in their, like when they recount what their experience. It's like little subtle details like that. If someone's trying to especially if someone's like trying to BS you, I don't think that's going to be like a main detail that they're going to be mindful enough to like include or make, front and center. So it's definitely like, you've been doing this like, way, way longer than I have, but like from what little experience I have, it's, like those subtle details that people include, that they don't really make, like they're important, but they don't really make like a central part of their report. I really think, could give a lot of these reports credence. So.
Exactly. And I encourage people to go to, my YouTube channel is go to KentuckyBigfoot.com, go to the YouTube stuff. I've got dozens of eyewitness encounters like Leonette's where the witness is talking about their encounter on camera. So they're not afraid to be ridiculed. Like they're risking a lot, really. I mean, to go on camera and share their story is pretty brave, I think.
Oh, sure.
So more and more people are coming forward now. It's more accepted now than ever before. So people are not as much, they're not as leery as much as they used to be, but you could just listen to them yourself. Like you guys get witnesses on here. Let people listen to the witness talk about it and decide for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah.
So you two go to the Tennessee conference? Was it the Great Smoky Mountain one in July? Or are you guys going to be there?
No, I spoke there last year. I was one of the presenters. I am going in October. There's a huge festival, the Upper Cumberland Bigfoot Festival, if I'm saying it right, is in October in Tennessee. It's a huge outdoor festival. And there's a few other, I forgot who they are, Creepy People Management. They're the ones who manage Meldrum and Cliff and Bobo, the Mountain Monsters. They manage all of them guys. I'm on there now too. If you go to their website, you can see the events, and that event is on there for October.
Sure.
Okay, wow. And Lynette, you're not going either?
I am going to the Tennessee one in July.
You are?
Yeah, so, yeah.
Good.
Well,
We'll have to meet up then.
Yeah, we'll definitely meet up. Yeah, we'll definitely meet up. Maybe grab like a bite to eat, try to get out in the woods or something like that.
Yeah, we're gonna go a day early so we can do some hiking.
Oh, nice. Well, when are you guys getting down there? That Thursday, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna get down there Thursday night, and then Friday we're hoping to do some hiking.
Okay.
Because the actual conference is on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's our plan, right, Charlie? We're probably gonna carpool. We're gonna leave Thursday night and just drive throughout the night and get there Friday.
Friday sometime, and then hopefully, we'll see how tired we are, but
yeah,
we'll figure it out.
It's
5 hour energy.
That's one of the better run conferences I've ever been to.
Oh, good.
Well organized, tons of vendors, huge, the largest venue I've ever been to. 2,000 people.
Wow.
They're the same ones that did the Florida.
Are they? Yeah, the same ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are literally 2,000 people in the audience.
Jeez.
Oh, wow. Well, we reserved our tickets, so luckily we're sitting next to each other.
We tried getting the VIP, like Lynette and I did for the Great Florida Conference, and they were sold out already. Like I got my ticket like a month ago.
Yeah, by the time I got my ticket, it was sold out. So I told Toby, we're planning them.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how quickly it sold out. Like this was like months in advance, and the VIP thing was sold out, and like a lot of like the front row seats were already plucked off too. I mean, we got pretty good seats. I think we're in like an aisle. We're like somewhere in the aisle or something like that. But
we're Z10. You kidding me? We're by the bathroom.
As long as you're not in the upper level. Is there an upper level, Charlie?
No, there's not. Can I mention another conference if you don't care?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
The Alabama Bigfoot Conference is June 11th, which is coming up in about a month. And it's in Alabama. Cliff is going to be there. Ken, Gerhard, Melissa, myself. So that's a big one there. If you want to go down to Alabama, there's a VIP dinner. There's a whole deal, So go to, I think it's called BamaBigfootConference.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, try to support if you can, because like I said, Anita's a very nice lady. She put a lot of hard work into having it for the first year for her, and she was so nervous. I mean, I met her in Michigan last year. And I've talked to her during the year, and she's been so nervous about getting it up and going. So, but she's got a great lineup. Having you there, Charlie and Cliff and Ken and
it's
Melissa,
a great lineup.
Hopefully, there's a good turnout. Definitely try to support her. I'm
And
actually next week. I'm going to the Coshocton Triangle. If you ever want to go to a cool at Coshocton, Ohio. I mean, they got a lot. That's a hot spot in Ohio, and they do a great job. They had the first one last year.
Yep.
But I'm going back. It was so good last year that I'm going back. But that's another one that keep it on the radar. It's usually like the first or second week in May. Usually the week after the OBC. So
yeah.
But
the Deep South too, in my opinion, really really underrated area for Bigfoot sightings. I know it goes by a couple of different names down there depending on where you are, but it definitely is. It's definitely got like a pretty rich history down there. So. It's good to see that more people are taking notice of that and acting on that. But unfortunately, it looks like we have run out of time. Lynette, Charlie, I really really appreciate you guys coming on. I had a blast talking to you guys.
Yeah, this is great
this evening. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Yes, thank you.
We're going to be. We have Gwen and Carrie. They have Matt Arner. He's Arner. He's a Pennsylvania researcher, law enforcement expert. He's gonna be on the show next week at 7:00, and then also we're gonna be down at the Virginia conference. So if you guys are close to Virginia, come down to the Virginia conference. We'll be down there in the second week, the 18th of June, for the ECBRO conference. So, but thank you so much for coming on our show. It's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Love to have you guys back on again.
I'm gonna go play the piano now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, play us off.
So, have Jeeves do it for you.
Yeah, you guys will you guys will hang out in the back end after we sign off for a few minutes. All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, but from behind tall behind tall trees, Mike, Charlie, Mike, Chuck. Want to thank Charlie and Lynette for coming on again. Really had a blast talking to you guys. We'll have you guys on soon. And I think that's all we have for tonight. Play us out, Brendan.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
You've been watching From Behind Tall Trees, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.